So I want to talk about some law mechanics. An interesting question gets thrown around in the news media a lot, which basically, if a person doesn't have enough credibility or whatever, then the government revokes their clearance, so they can't look at secret materials. And so, what people in the news have been saying, a lot of people on Fox, have been saying, Hillary Clinton could lose her clearance, and then how could she be president? Because if she loses her clearance because of the email servers, then she can't look at uh, you know, the classified information. So then she can't be an effective president. Okay, so I wanted to basically talk about the mechanics of law and then apply the mechanics of law to that that statement. Um, so in terms of so basically, if you have two laws that are in contradiction of each other, then we have the United States has a hierarchy of which ones supersede the other ones. You can't have two laws, excuse me, acting at the same time. One will take precedence over the other one. So, or supremacy, I should say, over the other one. So the top body of law in the United States is the Constitution. So the text of the Constitution is the preeminent law, and if there's any law in contradiction to it, then that law is no good and cannot be applied. The secondary law is statutory law, and this is congressional statutory law, and the Constitution specifically lays out which things Congress can pass laws in regard to, and that's in the original Constitution. Okay, the third layer, and I'm going to ignore the state laws for this topic. I'm just talking federal law for this. The third layer is of law is regulation, and federal regulation is has to be prescribed uh, in the law, the statute itself. So basically, a good example of regulation is they'll pass a highway law and say, and the police or the mayor or whatever can set up appropriate speed limits for the different roads depending on how fast they should be. Okay, so that's kind of like the classic regulatory example. So basically, you have regulations which have to be, and regulations have uh, advise and comment periods where basically they let the public look at what the regulation is. Okay, and then the fourth layer is executive order. Basically direction by the executive branch to its employees and how the employees are to cover their stuff, how they're to act. And this is, the whole executive order thing has been kind of a hot topic because executive orders have been kind of gotten blown out of their traditional role, which, like I said, should constitutionally it should only be to direct their employees. And there's some question of whether, like for instance, you'll hear in elections. I remember in the Republican nomination, people would say, on the first day I get elected, I'm going to sign an executive order to end Obamacare. Well, that's not really the point of executive orders. Um, that's beyond the scope of an executive order. I mean, it should be. Okay, so you have those four different layers. Now, the question is, in terms of what the people are talking about with um, a person losing their security clearance or their ability to view classified material, what layer is that? I'm not sure what layer it is, but we'll analyze it depending on whatever layer it could be. So I think that I think it could be an executive order, an executive policy, basically that you can lose your security clearance. And so if Hillary Clinton gets elected and then these things come out that are bad about her server, she could, and if she's the president, she could just write an executive order saying that she can see the classified information. If the thing that's preventing her from seeing classified information is an executive order or executive policy, she could just write an executive order to get clearance and done. If If it's part of a regulation, then I think it would have to be another regulation or statutory. They'd have to pass a law that would give her the ability to um, see classified information. And if it's statutory, then it'd have to be statutory. Now, the thing about this though is I actually think they have a constitutional case. Even if it's even statutory, I actually think they have a constitutional case that would say the president is the leader of the military, the chief military officer or whatever, the person in charge of the military. Um, and I would say that part of their constitutional powers is that they get to look at classified information, because classified information, the reason it's classified is because of national security, and they're the head national security person. So if in that case, I actually think what they would do is have a I think what they should do is challenge it in the Supreme Court and say that she would have clearance regardless, because it's within her constitutional power to view the classified material. And I actually think that is the winning argument on that. But that's my view. So yeah, so those are the mechanics of. I know it's kind of a swamp in terms of it's kind of complex, but those are the mechanics of law, the hierarchy of and supremacy of law, and then how that would apply to Hillary Clinton.